This is Gemara Metziah, Daf Ayin Vav and Baruch Hashem. Another exciting day in the world of Daf as you begin another new parak, the sixth parak in Bav Metziah, as we journey through this Masechta, Hasoicher Es Ha'omnin. And the name of the parak tells half of the story that we're going to deal with different scenarios of schiros, different scenarios of workers, the chiyuvei tashlumim, when one of the parties has an issue, whether it's failing to do their job, whether it's failing to pay, etc., etc. So we begin with the Mishnah, Seicher as Omnim. Someone hires Seicher, Schiros, as Omnin, a craftsman, Vehitu Zeh as Zeh, and they tricked one another. Who tricked who? We will see shortly. Says the Mishnah, in lahem zel zel tarumais. All they could do is complain, but there's no actual monetary compensation that can be sought from either party. Case number one in the Mishnah. Case number two, Socher Chamar, someone hires a donkey driver, Vesakadar, or a wagon driver, Lavi Piryaparin, to deliver, to bring. Piryaparin is a type of flat wood. V'chalolim, or types of flutes, like kala for the kala. Oilemes, or for a burial, as at their burials they used to play different songs and with the flutes, etc. Upayalin la'alois bishtanim in a mishra, or someone hired workers to raise up his flax from the water that the flax is sitting in. V'chol davar sha'avad, or any form of work which is something that can be lost, meaning time sensitive, object sensitive, etc. And then v'chazru bahen, and the worker didn't do what he promised. The worker said he'll bring item A to place B. The worker said he'll raise up item B from a certain scenario, and he didn't do it. Ma dinoi, says the Mishnah. In the last line of Ayin Ham and Beis, and there's in a place where there's no one else that you could hire. Soicher alein, there's no one else to hire at the price that the original guy agreed upon. So Seicher Aleim, so you have to hire other people even at higher prices, and then the original worker is going to have to compensate because he caused you that loss. Oy Matan, or he could trick the original workers to working for him. Again, the Gemara will elaborate. Continues the Mishnah with case 3. If someone hires a worker and they backed out in the middle of their job, Yadam ala techtaina, they have the lower hand that we're going to calculate that which they're going to get paid based on them potentially losing the most. Continues the Mishnah as we turn over to Ayinvav Amud Aleph. In Balabai Chayzer Boy. Let's say the Balabai is the one that reneges, then Yadai ala tachtaina. Then the Balabayis has the lower hand that he has to pay them a higher amount. Kol ha-mishane, and what's the rule? Concludes the Mishnah. Kol ha-mishane, yadai ala tachtaina. He who deviates, he's the one that messes up, he gets the lower hand. V'chol ha-chayzer boy, yadai ala tachtaina. And the one that backs out, he as well has the lower hand. So, we go back to the first case in the Mishnah, which the Mishnah said someone hired a worker. Vehitu zeh as zeh, says the Gemara. Chazru zeh b'zeh loikotani. The Mishnah did not say that they backed out. Elehitu, they tricked, they deceived one another. Says the Gemara, what does that mean? Da'atu pailim ahadadi, that the workers tricked one another. Worker A tricked worker B. Says the Gemara, Hechidami. What does this mean? The Amar le Balabayis Zil Ogirli Payalim. The Balabayis told one of his workers to hire for him workers. Va'azal Ihu, and the worker went Va'atinu, and he deceived them. So again, we have let's say, well, I'll be the Baal Bayis, and I tell my worker, Ruvain, can you go hire me some workers to, I don't know, mow the lawn? So Ruvain goes, Ruvain being my quote unquote shliach, my worker, and he deceives the worker. How? Hechi dami. So we're slowly getting clarity on the case. Id amar le balabayis barba. If the balabayis said, I'll pay 4 zuz a day, vazal iu, and the worker read amar lu bit talasa, and he told that the worker that's only going to get 3 zuz a day, and the worker agreed. Why does the worker even have complaints? Savar, he know what he was getting himself into. It's very nice. I mean, it's not very nice that my worker told a lower price and I agreed to pay. But at the end of the day, the worker knew of the price and he accepted it. So what's the Tarumai's potential? So continues the Gemara, Idamar, 12 lines down, first one line is Damar. Idamar le Balabais Betlos. Let's say the Balabais said, I'll pay 3. Vazal Iu, and he, the worker, went, and Amar Lahu, and he said, Barba, that he's going to pay 4. So again, Hechi Dami, what's the case? Idamar Lahu, Schartem Alai. If, again, my worker, Ruvain, said, I'll pay you, meaning I'm obligating myself to give you 4 a day. So Nasal day. So then he obligated himself. I'm very good that I only said I'm going to pay 3, but he said he's going to pay 4, and he has to go and pay 4. Titania, as we learned in the Brisa, Lasois Bishaloif. So when I was a worker to do something in his own field, but he shows him his friend's field, and he works there instead. You have to pay him in full because he did what you told him to. And then the Baal Bayis, okay, had his field bettered, so he'll have to give him the benefit. But the worker that obligated himself to pay, he's the one that has to pay. So too in our case, if the worker said, I'll pay you 4, so he obligated himself to pay 4. So finally he answers the Gemara. Damlus chartechem al balabayis. And now we understand what the problem is. I told my worker to hire someone for $3 a day, and he said the balabayis is going to pay you $4 a day. So now we have a problem, and this is the case in which the workers, all they could do is they got scammed. This is a classical scam. Therefore, all they have is tarumais. They could just complain. Ask the Gemara 1 second. Mitagri. But why don't we see what is the local current price? That if it's really 4 zuz a day, then maybe they can actually claim it from the Baal Bayis. And if it's only 3, then there's no reason to even complain. Lo Yitzricha, says the Gemara in the classical teretz, the Ika de Magar Barba, Vika de Mitkar Bitzlos. So nothing is ever so black and white. Some pay 3, some pay 4. So Adam Rulei, so they could say to this guy who hired them to Ruvain, he loved Amr Lan Barba. If you didn't tell us 4, Tarchinu B'Targinu Barba, we would go try to get 4 elsewhere. And that's the reason why they have Tarumais. Complaints. Iba Yisema, says the Gemara, another pshat, smack in the middle of the first line is Hacha. Hacha B'Balabayis Askina on Amrulei. They say to him, Ilav Amr Lon Barba, if you didn't tell us 4, Havizila Bon Milsa Letagure. If you didn't tell us 4, we have never agreed, because it would have been demeaning for us to work for that. But Lamaisa, they agreed, and therefore, at the end of the day, all they have is Tarumais. Iba Yisem a third shot. They could say to the guy who hired them, since you told us that we're getting 4, we worked extra. We worked extra hard because we thought we were getting 4. Now we're only getting 3. They are upset. Says the Gemara, why don't we just go look and see if Lamaisa they did work for 4 or not? Says the Gemara, Barifka, we're dealing with workers that dug a ditch, and therefore it's not so clear. Rivka Nami asking about why not made a yada. You could tell in the ditch. The mali mai is already filled with water. V'lo yediya. So 3 different explanations how we could potentially learn the case of the Mishnah that the worker that hired these other workers deceived them, hitu zeh bazeh, but lamaisa there's no real monetary claim, and eino yela ta'arumais. Says the Gemara, ibayis ema. Let's go back to a previous shot that we just said, and let's delve a little bit deeper. About 15 lines to the bottom, the first line is la'ilam. Ibayis ema la'ilam damar le balabayis barba. Really, I'll tell you, the Balabayis agreed to pay 4. Vazal ihu amrlu b'tlas. And the worker said he's only going to give 3. Utka amrit. So what was the obvious question? Savar v'kabel. So what's your complaint? You agreed. You heard he offered you 3 and you agreed. Ta'amri lei less lach. The reason is the workers could claim to the guy who hired them, less lach al timna toivim v'aylav. Do not withhold good from the owner. If the owner was willing to pay us higher, why did you not tell us that? Meaning, the taina, the taroimes that the workers have is not in that they were deceived, in that they said, why did you only offer us 3? The Baal Bayis was willing to pay 4. That's why they were upset. So really 4 different shatim, what the potential tarumais in the Mishnah is. Continues the Gemara Pshita. The following is Pashit Yamli Balabayis Vitlasa. If the Balabayis said, I'm going to pay 3 a day, Vasli Yamli Barbani said 4, Vamri Le, and the workers responded, Kamosh Amr Balabayis, and the workers responded, we accept that which the Balabayis said. Taitayu Aluye, so their das is on the Balabayis, which again is going to be 4. The Balabayis, which again, that's really the confusing detail. The workers responded, Taitayu aluyayu. We want that which they said, one more time. Let's go back. The workers said that Kemoisha Amar Balabayis. So what do the workers mean when they responded to the guy hiring them like the Balabayis said? So says the Gemara, l'chayra, what it means is is that their das is to get a higher number, even though whatever that higher number is. But says the Gemara, but Eloi Amrle Balabayis Barba. What about in the flip case? The Balabayis said 4. Vazali Amrlu B'Tzlasa. And then he went and told the workers they were only giving 3. Va'amri, and the workers responded, Kimoy Sha'amar Balabayis. Whatever the Balabayis said. So says the Gemara, Mai. How do we understand this case? Adibura Dideika Samchi. Are they relying on that which they were told? That what they're saying is, we believe you. That whatever you're saying the Balabayis said, Oidelma, or maybe Adibura Balabayis Kosamchi. Maybe they're relying on the words of the Balabais. So when the Balabais offered more than that which the guy who was hiring offered, and the employees responded, whatever the Balabais said, how do we interpret that? Tashima, 8 lines from the bottom says the Gemara, Havali Giti. If a woman says to someone, bring me my get vishcha amra, but the person told the husband his kabaligiti, meaning the woman didn't say his kabaligiti, the woman said havaligiti. Very big difference. Havaligiti means be my shliach lahaylacha, be my shliach to get the get and bring it to me. His kabaligiti means be my shliach to accept the get from me, and that's what the shliach said. V'uamar, the Balbai said, "Hey, amra, here." Take the paper, however my wife or ex-wife said. Omer Rav Nachman Amar Rav Omer Rav, afilu igia get liyada, even if she actually gets the get, like she said, einoi migu reshes. Lamaisa, she is not divorced. Why? Shmas mina, what do we see? Adibura didei kasamich. Even though the husband says, Heilach kemoisha amra, even though the husband says, take it like she says the Gemara, must be the husband's really being saimich on the words of the Baal Bayis. Really being saimich on the words of the Shliach, and that's the reason why there's no gerushin. Then of course, that when she gets it should be like she said, which is shliach lo ilacha, and she should be divorced. From the fact that the Brisa says she's not divorced, must be the husband's relying on what the shliach said. The shliach said, I'm a shliach likabbalah, and of course he's not a shliach likabbalah, and that's the reason why they are not divorced. Says the Gemara, so we'll bring a raya back to our case, that when the workers are hired and they say, must be what they're really relying upon is the guy who's hiring them. Amar Ravashi, says Ravashi, no raya. So we turn over to Ayin Vav and Beis, Hachi Ashta. Says Ravashi, we could fundamentally not really disagree, but we could say that there's a fundamental difference between the case of get and our case of hiring workers. In the reverse case, that what? If really she said accept the get, the sheikh says I want to bring the get, and the husband, and on that case, 4 lines down, I involve him in the base. That lemaisa, once the shliach picks it up, she is divorced. So then it's a clear raya. That word didaka samech, because she made the shliach kabbalah, even though the shliach said I'm a shliach lehoilacha, said Rav Nachman she divorced as soon as the shliach picks it up. Clearly, the husband's relying upon the shliach. Inami, or if you were to tell me she can get liyadam migrashes, alma, that would also be clear proof that word didaka samech of the shliach. Ella, but says more in our case that we quoted also Misham Da'akar Shlech L'Shechuse Legamri. In the case that we quoted where she said Shlech Le'ilacha, and the Shliach said I'm a Shlech L'Kabbalah. Says the Gemara, you know why there's no Gerushin? Because the Shliach is uprooting his Shlichos. Da'amar Le'Shlech L'Kabbalah Havina Le'ilacha Le'Havina. Because the shliach is saying, I don't want to be a shliach la'ilacha. I don't want to be responsible for bringing back the get. I only want to accept the get right here, right now. That's why it's not a good gerushin. But it wouldn't necessarily show me anything about being saimich on his das, her das, and translating to our case, being saimich on the shliach, the worker's das, the balabayis is das, teret number 1. This is a total new way of learning. That in our Mishnah, we're talking about a case. We're still going in the first case of the Mishnah of a hitu zeh. Says the Gemara, you know what else we could say? That when we say the hitu zeh actually means, which we suggested that it can't be. But now the Gemara says maybe, yeah. That they tricked each other. Titanya. We learned in a brayso, so an hired a worker of it to his valbais, the trick to valbais, valbais, it to a son, Elam Zelzel, Tarumais. Bamed, Varmamurmas is referring to 3 lines from the wide lines. Shaloyahalchu. This is referring to a case where does it mean that they only have Tarumais, they can't really make any other claim? Shaloyahalchu. Where the Balabayis backed out at the beginning of the day, so the workers were loyal, they didn't yet go to where they're supposed to work. Aval halchu, but if they already started working, chamarim, but if they went and they showed up, but the package they were supposed to deliver was not there, or the workers came, and they found the veal that was wet, therefore they couldn't shovel it. In that case, Noisein lois char mishalim. Even though the Baal Bayis try to back out, he has to pay their full wages. Aval eina daima, the first white line, abba ta'un leba rekon. They can't compare one who comes loaded to unloaded, meaning lemaisa he worked less. Lemaisa he didn't have to transport this heavy package. So you have to compensate them, but at a lower level. Explains the Gemara, but if they already started working, they reevaluate the work that they did, and he has to pay that. Ketzad keblu kama likser v'shnei slayim. If they accepted to cut down grain for 2 slayim, katzu chatzia. They cut down half of it, chatzia. Or beged laru, they accepted upon themselves to weave a beged b'shnei slayim, argu chatzia v'niya chatzia. Shamalem as masha also we value that which they did. Hayafa shisha dinarim. If now, this is where things get confusing, because if everything's at the same price, it wouldn't be such a big deal. The problem is, hayafa shisha dinarim. Let's say the price has risen and now it's worth 6 dinarim. Originally it was for 2 slayim, which is 8 dinarim. Now it's risen to 6 dinarim. So what does he have to pay them? Noisein lo yitzela. He has to pay them he has to pay them half of the original deal, which is 4 dinar, even though that's 2/3 of the current price. Or yigmu malachtan, v'ylushnei slayim, or they can finish their work and take their full wages. V'im sela, but if it's still in the same value, then noislam sela, then he just pays them the sela. Says the Gemara, Rav Daisa argues. He says, they evaluate that which still needs to be done, meaning whatever needed to complete the job will deduct that from whatever they're going to get paid, and they'll get paid the rest, meaning he views it the other way. Not what they did, but how much it's going to take for the Baal Bayis to complete the job. When is this? This is only by something that is not lost, meaning the guy stopped working in the middle. If it didn't get ruined, then everything's out the window. The halacha is Baal Bayis could go and hire someone at any cost, and the worker that stopped in the middle of the job is going to have to pay for it. I mitan or trick them. Keitzad matan. How can the Baal Bayis trick them? Baal Bayis could say, originally I said I'll give you a selah. Come, finish up the job and I'll give you 2. But really, he's not going to actually give it to Vad Kama. And how much does the Baal Bayis spend to replace the first workers? Ad arbaim v'chamishim zuz, until 40 or 50 zuz, even though that's many times greater than what the original workers were hired to pay. And b'medvar ma'amurim bizman she'ein sham payalim lischar v'yisham payalim lischar v'amar say uschar me'elu ein lem ela alein el tarumais. Because if there are other workers there, then the Baal Bayis just could complain. He doesn't really have more than that to say, because it's just annoying to go find new workers in the middle of the job. But Lamaisa, he's able to, and therefore it's only Tarumais. So this is a second way of explaining the first pshat in the Mishnah, first case. That when the case said, Hitu zeh meant chazru. And now once we start discussing chazru, which is someone stopping in the middle of the work, we quote along a lengthy brace of figuring out what is the halacha indeed if someone stops in the middle of the work. And we're going to stop over here. I'll pick it up from here. B'siyata dishmaya.